Hey guys, it's George again. So, as you know from my last video, today I'm going to be talking about subtracting fractions. So my last video, I talked about adding fractions and did a couple of examples with adding fractions. An example involving adding fractions where both fractions had the same denominator, and then I also did a more complicated example where the two fractions I was adding had different denominators, and I showed you how to handle such a situation or such a problem by finding the lowest common multiple between the two denominators. So today I'm going to do something similar but with subtracting fractions. So it's the same idea as adding fractions. The only difference is you're subtracting fractions, but the process is basically the same. So I'm going to start by introducing the topic and doing a couple of examples for you guys, just like I did with my first video with adding fractions. By the way, I forgot to mention, don't forget to subscribe to my videos, and I promise I'll do the same back. I'm just trying to increase number of viewers I have, and you know, since this is only my second video, I still don't have many viewers or too many subscribers yet. So please do subscribe whenever you get a chance, and promise I'll do the same back for you. Okay, so here we go. So today's topic: subtracting fractions. Alright. So let's start off with another simple example. So we're going to subtract two fractions that have the same denominator, basically. So here we go. Okay. So I'll do 3 over 5 minus 1 over 5. So there's the question. See it clearly. Alright. So, just like with adding fractions, right? The answer to this question is basically going to be 2 over 5. Why? Because, well, it's the same idea as with the way I added my fractions, right? When we have common denominators. So I keep the denominator the same for my answer, and the numerator, you basically just subtract them. So 3 minus 1, and so the answer will be 2 over 5. So you subtract numerators, keep the denominator the same, and that is the answer to this question. Alright, so that was the easy question. So now we'll do another one, but more complicated. Alright, so now the denominators will be different. So here I go. Okay. So I'll do 7 over 8 minus a quarter. We'll do that. Alright. So you'll notice here again that both denominators are different. This one's 8 and this one's 4, so we can't do the same thing we did over here in this first example. So we need to write equivalent fractions for both 7 over 8 and 1 over 4, where the denominators are the same. Okay, so I'm going to just write them both separately here. Okay, and to do that, we need to find a common denominator between 8 and 4, and so we need to find the lowest common denominator like we did in the first video with adding fractions. So, same idea again. take the 8, and I'm going to list all of the common multiples of 8. All the multiples of 8, and then I'll list all the multiples of 4, and I'll find the lowest common multiple between the two lists. Okay, for 8 and 4. So 8, basically we have, so 8 times 1 is 8, and 8 times 2 is 16, 8 times 3 is 24, and 8 times 4 is going to be 32, and you can keep going for as long as you want, but I'll stop there for now. I think that is enough to list for the time being. And then for the 4, okay, so I'm going to list now the multiples of 4. Okay, so 4 times 1 is 4, and 4 times 2 is 8, then we'll have 12, 16, 20, and 24, and 28, and you can keep going, right? So this one here is 8 times 1, this one here is 8 times 4, this one here is 4 times 1, and this one here is 4 times 7. Okay, so there's the two lists we have. So I listed all the multiples of 8, I listed all the multiples of 4, and now we do what we did last time when we find the lowest common multiple between 8 and 4. Well, if I look through the list, 8 and 4, they have both lists have 8 in common. See that? And also they'll have 16 in common, and I also see 24 in common. But we're going to choose the smallest number, obviously, that they have in common, and that's going to be the 8. Okay? So that will be our lowest common multiple. It will be 8 in this question. Okay? Now, this is obviously, seems a little tedious to do, right? You know, you ask yourself, is there some sort of shortcut? Well, the thing is, with more practice, the more you practice adding and subtracting fractions, especially when they don't have the same denominators, the fractions that you're adding or subtracting, with time and with practice, I mean, you don't need to go through this process of listing all the multiples of 8 and listing all the multiples of 4, but since I'm going through first example here with you guys, first couple of examples with you guys involving fractions, and you know, just for for those who aren't familiar with, or wondering how do you find the lowest common multiple between two numbers, well, this is basically the long way of doing it. This is the actual process of doing it, but I mean, with time and practice, you can easily figure out the lowest common multiple, in your head. It doesn't really take that much time to figure out in some questions, But obviously, more complicated questions than these, like with double-digit fractions or triple digits even, you'd obviously need to go through this process to figure it out. And because when you have big numbers, it's harder to find the lowest common multiple automatically in your head. But these kind of questions, I mean, you can find the lowest common multiple in your head, once you practice a couple of questions and you see how this process works. But I just wanted to go through this process with you guys in case those who are not familiar with fractions at all and have never subtracted or added a fraction before know how to do it, the long way, and then, with time you'll be able to easily figure out the lowest common multiple between numbers. You don't need to write out this tedious list the way I'm doing right here. Okay, so this is the lowest common multiple between 8 and 4 is 8. So to go back to our two fractions in our question, then I guess we can keep the 8 here. right? So the common denominator between the two fractions will be the lowest common multiple, 8. Right? And to get 8 here, obviously, I did 8 times 1 and 7 times 1, so this stays the same. But this fraction, to go from 4 to 8, obviously you will need to multiply by 2 to both the numerator and denominator of this of 1 over 4, and so now this will be a 2. Right? So now, now we can rewrite this question using these two fractions instead, because now we'll have a common denominator between the two fractions. We can subtract them easily the way we did in this example. So let's do that. Alright, 7 over 8 minus 2 over 8 instead of 7 over 8 minus 1 over 4. So now it's much simpler. Looks exactly like this question. See? The denominators are now the same. Denominators are now the same, so we can do this. Right? So 7 minus 2 is going to obviously be 5. And then we keep the denominator the same, so it's going to be an 8. And that's the answer. That's the answer to the question. 5 over 8. Okay, so this is my lesson on subtracting fractions. As you can see, it's not that much different than adding fractions. You know, just the operation is different, that's all. But the process is the same. Alright, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in my next video.